Walnuts have received considerable attention in brain health research, and when we examine them specifically for ND+ metabolism and Alzheimer's-related cognitive decline, there's actually some compelling science supporting their use. However, as with all nuts, we need to discuss quality, quantity, preparation, and some significant concerns that often get overlooked in the enthusiasm around walnuts as a so-called brain food. The connection to brain health operates through multiple mechanisms. Walnuts are particularly rich in alpha-linolenic acid, which is a plant-based omega-3 fatty acid. While ALA needs to be converted to the more bioactive EPA and DHA forms, and this conversion is quite inefficient in humans, typically only 5–10%, walnuts still provide meaningful omega-3 content. These omega-3s reduce inflammation and support neuronal membrane health, creating a metabolic environment that preserves ND+ function by reducing stress-driven consumption. Walnuts also contain polyphenol, particularly elagitannins, which gut bacteria metabolize into urolithins. Emerging research suggests urolithins may support mitochondrial health and even stimulate mitophagy, which is the selective removal of damaged mitochondria. Since healthy mitochondria are where ND+ facilitates energy production, this mitochondrial support is directly relevant to brain energy metabolism. Some human studies have shown associations between walnut consumption and better cognitive performance, though these are observational studies with all the limitations that entails. A few small intervention studies have shown modest cognitive improvements with regular walnut consumption in older adults, though the effects are typically subtle and not transformative. Now, let's discuss the significant complications with walnuts. First, they're extremely calorie-dense, about 185 calories per ounce, which is roughly 14 walnut halves. I've watched countless people eat walnuts mindlessly while working or watching television, consuming several ounces without realizing they've taken in 400 to 600 calories. For someone trying to maintain metabolic health, this unconscious overconsumption can be genuinely problematic. The omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, while better in walnuts than in many other nuts, is still about 4:1. The Western diet typically already provides excessive omega-6 relative to omega-3, and while walnuts are better than many alternatives, consuming them in large quantities could still contribute to an unfavorable fatty acid balance if the rest of the diet isn't well constructed. Oxidation is a critical issue with walnuts that rarely gets adequate attention. The polyunsaturated fats in walnuts are highly susceptible to oxidation when exposed to heat, light, and oxygen. Rancid walnuts not only taste bitter and unpleasant, they actually become inflammatory and potentially harmful. Many walnuts sold in stores have been sitting for months, exposed to light and fluctuating temperatures, and are partially oxidized before purchase. Rancid fats generate free radicals that cause exactly the kind of oxidative stress we're trying to prevent. Walnuts should be purchased in shell when possible or stored in airtight containers in the refrigerator or freezer. That bowl of walnuts sitting on your counter for weeks is probably doing more harm than good. Unfortunately, most people don't know this or don't follow proper storage practices. The phytic acid content in walnuts is substantial, binding to minerals like zinc, iron, and magnesium and reducing their bioavailability. Soaking walnuts overnight can reduce phytic acid content and improve digestibility, but most people eat them raw without soaking. Some people also find walnuts difficult to digest, experiencing bloating or digestive discomfort. Walnut allergies are relatively common and can be severe. Tree nut allergies affect about 1–2% of the population and can cause anaphylaxis, which is life-threatening. For people with tree nut allergies, walnuts are obviously dangerous and must be strictly avoided. The tannin content in walnuts can interfere with iron absorption and may cause digestive irritation in sensitive individuals. The thin brown skin on walnuts contains most of these tannins, and some people remove it to improve digestibility, though this is time-consuming. Quality variation is significant. Conventional walnuts may contain pesticide residues, though this is less of a concern than with produce that has more surface exposure. Organic walnuts are preferable but considerably more expensive. Black walnuts, which are a different species than English walnuts, have even higher polyphenol content but are harder to find and more expensive. There's also the environmental consideration. Walnut farming, particularly in California, which produces most U.S. walnuts, is water-intensive and has sustainability concerns. The carbon footprint of walnuts is higher than many plant foods, though still much lower than animal products. The realistic recommendation would be 1 ounce of fresh, properly stored walnuts, 4 to 5 times per week. They should be purchased in small quantities, stored in the refrigerator or freezer, and checked for rancidity before eating. If they taste bitter or off, they should be discarded. Ideally, they could be soaked overnight and lightly toasted to improve digestibility and palatability. In conclusion, walnuts offer legitimate support for brain health through omega-3 fatty acids and polyphenol that support mitochondrial function and reduce inflammation, indirectly preserving ND+ metabolism. However, caloric density, susceptibility to oxidation, and the need for proper storage mean they require thoughtful consumption. They're a valuable component of a brain-healthy diet when used correctly, but they're not a miracle food.